Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. So this is the visa section. We're just going to take you through what you need to do while applying to Ireland after you've gotten your admission letter. So with me here today is David. David is the head of visa office in Abuja, is here in Abuja, but covers the whole of West Africa. And yes, we will be starting. He will be giving you details on how to apply to Ireland. And yes, please, if you have any questions, just put it up in the comment section. And at the time when he's through with the presentations and discussions that he has, he will be happy to take any of the questions you may have. So over to you, David. Yeah.
Thank you, Rosaline. Welcome, everyone. As Rosaline said, I head up the visa office with the Irish Embassy here in Abuja in Nigeria. And we process visa applications for Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. I'm going to talk you through the application process and hopefully try make it simple and easy for you. And maybe answer some of the questions in advance, but hopefully I'll have some time to answer anything that hasn't been answered during the presentation at the end. So I'm going to share my screen here and talk you through some of the main websites and where you need to go and what you need to do. So as Rosaline said, after you've gotten your admission letter with the college and the course, and that can't just be any sort of course. I suppose it needs to be one of the eligible programs. So there's a new Irish immigration website, irishimmigration.ie, which is this one. And within there, in the planning to study section, there's details on the programs that are eligible. So that's this page here. So it details, there's a list of the courses and what's this list, the eligible list here, details the different institutions and courses that are eligible. As well as getting having your admission letter before you can start your visa application process, you need to have, I suppose, paid a minimum of €6,000 worth of the college fees. That's the immigration requirement. The college may want more or less, but for applying for your visa, you have to have at least paid that much in advance. The first step in the visa application process is the creation of your online application. So we advise to apply at least 2 months in advance of the start of your course, but the earlier you apply, the better. We'll start accepting applications for the September intake in May. So the first step is this online application form. So you fill in all your details there, make sure that you're truthful, make sure that you cover all the gaps in your education and employment history. If you've applied for visas for other countries, make sure you disclose that there and say there's no problem if you've applied to the US or Canada or wherever and just not been successful. Just make sure that you let us know. Don't conceal and hide that fact. If we find out and you haven't told us, then you may be refused and you may be banned as well. Once you've gone through the application process here, it lists, I suppose you have to put in all your biographic information, your passport details, family details, and then, like I said, your education. There's an education tab. You should also include your agent details if you're using an agent. There's a section at the end of the form for doing that. Once you've completed it, there's an online sort of summary form that you have to print out and sign. That's the hard copy of the application form. That's detailed, I suppose, in here, this page back on the Irish immigration page, which has the details of what required documentation you need to submit with your application. So it's the first thing on the list here, the application summary document. You also need to do a sort of letter, an application letter, and it must include the reasons, the dates you plan to come and arrive, that you will obey the conditions and not rely on public services or become a burden to the state, and leave Ireland before your immigration permission expires. It should have your contact details, and if you have any family members in Ireland or any other EU states, you need to disclose that there. And as well, I suppose you should explain, I guess, if you're changing your course of studies, if you have an undergraduate degree in one area, but you've decided to change, you have to give an explanation of that, and that should be there too. You need to provide 2 color passport size photographs, not more than 6 months old. And you should print your name and your visa application number clearly on the back. You have to provide your current passport, which needs to be valid for at least 12 months after your proposed date of arrival in Ireland. If you're successful and get a visa, you need to, when you go to Ireland, you have to register, I suppose, your permission to live and reside there. They'll only register you for the maximum amount of time validity on your passport. So it'll be, if you have less than 12 months validity on your passport, they won't register it. So we can't issue a visa into a long-term visa into a passport that has less than a year validity left on it. You need the evidence that you've enrolled on your privately funded course. So this is your admission letter, plus evidence that the amount of fees payable for your course and the amount that you've paid so far. If the medical insurance is part of the college fees, that needs to be specified and spelled out. And the minimum amount, I suppose, is €6,000. A couple of courses fees are less than that, so I suppose you have to pay all fees in those instances. You've got to provide evidence of your education and employment history. So you should, I suppose, you have to include your birth certificate, and you should include your WIAC. You should, if you completed an undergraduate degree, you should include the transcripts and degree parchment for that. And if you've been working since in between, if you've done your NYSC, so I suppose you've got to account for what you've been doing, I suppose, since finishing school. And that needs to be backed up with evidence, whether it's reference letters or NYSC certs, those kind of things. You have to show evidence of how you paid the fees to the college. So you provide an electronic transfer of funds to the Irish Bank of College showing, I suppose, the details of where that money has come from and that it's going to the college. You have to show the evidence that you have the academic ability to pursue the course. So this is, again, I suppose, your previous exam results and qualifications, your WIAC, your undergraduate degree if you're going for postgraduate, and so on. And then evidence of your level of English. This is quite a sore subject here, I'm aware, but this is a global requirement that we have. All students all across the world are required to provide this. There's some further details, I suppose. It doesn't necessarily have to be any one particular country's or one particular company's grades. There's a list here on this page of what scores you need in the different types of tests. So there's Cambridge, Duolingo, ETAP, IELTS, Pearson, TOEFL, and these are the scores that you need. On the left, that's if you're going to do a second level school course or foundation level course, but the majority of you will be looking at second level. So these are the scores, the minimum scores that you need in the different types of tests. And next is finances. And this is probably the biggest or most common refusal reason that we see. So there's an additional sort of page with the details on finances, which is this one here. So as well as paying the minimum of the 6,000 euros worth of fees, you also have to show that you have immediate access to at least 7,000 euros as living expenses or estimated living expenses. But if 6,000 euros, if your course is 20,000 euros and you've only paid 6, you need to, it's not just a question of a minimum sort of figure. You have to be able to show that you can afford to complete the course, so that you have the money to pay the fees. And if it's a multi-year course, then it's important that you have the income and that you show an income sufficient to be able to pay the second, third, fourth year fees if it's an undergraduate course with that many years. So it's not about showing this minimum amount. I suppose it's showing that you can well able to afford to do the study. So the kind of evidences that you're expected to be able to show, I suppose, are bank statements, showing that, and they have to be for 6 months, showing the money coming in and out of the account. They have to be on headed paper. One thing we accept here that's, I suppose, unique to West Africa, I suppose, is the My Bank statements. I suppose that's a way of providing us a digital verified copy of your bank statements, and that can help speed up the processing of your application. So as well as providing the document copies, you could send an electronic copy that way, and that's a verified copy as well. So that helps us to process quicker and reduces the amount of work that we have to do, which helps speeding up the processing of the application. As it says there, if there's large or irregular lodgements and stuff that are out of line with income or salaries, then I suppose if it's due to a sale of a property or kind of things, you must explain and provide the evidence to show that. And I suppose this is we need your own bank statements as well as those of your sponsors, if you're being sponsored by your family or your parents. So you need to, I suppose, show, I guess, again, they need to be able to show that they can afford to sponsor you and support you in your studies. So this second section, I guess, is a relation to the sponsorship. I suppose you must provide evidence, for example, birth certs, marriage certificates, of how you're linked to your sponsor. I suppose birth cert is a requirement for all applications, and if it's your parents sponsoring you, then you already have that link there. I suppose they didn't have to detail, I suppose, evidence of how they can support you. Their income, their pay slips, if they've got a business, I suppose, income tax receipts showing, I suppose, the turnover and the income of the business. Again, bank statements, and again, irregular lodgements and things like that have to be explained and evidence provided. There's alternative evidence of finances, a pilot program, the education bond, but you still, I suppose, have to show where the finances come from. So it's not a simple, you don't have to show anything else if you have this. You're still required, I suppose, to show the evidence of where the funds have come from for these. Going back to this main list of requirements, private medical insurance recovery is required. Sometimes colleges can arrange this on your behalf. If so, the acceptance admission letter should include the details. If not, you must organize this yourself. And there's further details as well at this link of what's acceptable and what's required for that. You can have a look and see that. And the last section here, I suppose, is previous refusals. Like I said, having applied to the US or Canada or wherever isn't a barrier. Just because you haven't been successful getting there doesn't mean you won't be successful in getting us, as long as you tell us about it and don't try and conceal or hide the fact. Just be open about it and detail that in the online and additional questionnaire that you're required to provide. I suppose this website is a worldwide sort of website of requirements, so it's generic. Not everywhere requires a birth certificate. They look for it. If you're under 18, then there's extra things that are required. I suppose you need to have consent of both your parents going studying, and they also need to nominate and have a legal guardian for you in Ireland. And so if the child is living, if a minor is living with someone other than family, that person has to be police vetted and cleared. Um, so as well, you'll need, for students under 18, as well as the birth certificate, you'll need the consent of the parents and the nomination of a legal guardian and vetting of the accommodation where they're going to be living. And there's no entitlement, I suppose, for family members to travel or join students in the state. So that's the list of requirements. Once you've gotten all the required documentation together, then the next step is booking an appointment to submit your application. So we use a partner company, VFS, who have visa application centers in Abuja and Lagos, and they operate an appointment system. So once you've gotten everything together, you've made your online application, gathered together all your required documentation, then you can book an appointment here in either Abuja or Lagos for submitting the application. Biometrics are captured, so you need to attend the appointment in person. And like I said at the start, we start accepting applications for September and May, and the earlier and you get your application in, the better. That's it from my presentation for now. I'm going to switch over now and have a look at the if there's questions or discussion and see if there's some that I haven't addressed. Okay, what have we got here? Do I need an agent? You don't need an agent, but you can use them. They can be helpful. I suppose they should be professional and familiar with the application process. The college may be able to help and recommend you, or they may agents, I suppose, can work with colleges as well as individuals. Where are we here? Can I work as a student in Ireland? Yes, you can work part-time during term time, so up to 20 hours a week. That's for if you're on one of the eligible sort of courses that allows you to do that from that ILEP list that I mentioned earlier. Then during holidays and breaks, I suppose you're allowed to work full time, so up to 40 hours a week, twice what you can work during term. The minimum tuition fee for the visa application process, like I said, that's 6,000 euros is what you have to have paid in fees before you can make your visa application, assuming the fees are that much. If they're under 6, you have to pay them all. Contact details for, I suppose that's one that he can answer you himself, maybe, or you can get in contact with them. Is there a consult or agent in Ghana? We don't. Well, I suppose we have an honorary consul, but they're not involved in the visa application process. Again, we use we use VFS as a partner in Ghana, so they collect and take in applications for us in Ghana and send them over to us here in Abuja. They have an office in Airport City in Accra, and you can. Again, you need to book an appointment with them to submit your application after you've gotten everything else together. Minimum tuition fee. Okay, we've done that one. How can an undergraduate? A question, I suppose, I didn't mention about dependents. So we don't, only PhD students are eligible to sponsor dependents family to join or travel with them. So that's the position on that. If it's master's or undergraduate, it's not possible. If it's PhD, it is depending on finances. Next question. Will I get a working permit if I study in Ireland? So as I said earlier, you're allowed work 20 hours a week. Your student permission comes with that kind of built in, so you don't get a separate work permit. There is the graduate scheme as well. So if you graduate at a level 8 or 9 course, you can stay back for 12 or possibly 24 months to look for a work and find a job. And if you're successful, then the company could apply for an employment permit for you to so that you can stay and work. What are the courses, bachelor and postgraduate, at a high employment rate? I'm not really well positioned to answer that. I'll leave that to others. Again, the transfer query there, that's, I suppose, something that you would need to talk to the colleges or universities about that offer the course that you want. So get in touch with one of the colleges or universities that are offering the course to see whether transfers are possible. There's a search facility on the left-hand side that puts you in the queue and stuff like that if you specify what you're looking at. Hi, Rosalind. You're back?
Yes, I am back. Well done. I was reading through the seminar. I was also listening. I think some of the questions as well that I was reading in US comments. I'm sure you're just going over the last ones that have been there. So some students would have perhaps they were born in Ireland and they've lived here over and over, like over the years that they've spent, and they want to go back. So, what are the benefits that those kind of students can explore in Ireland or while they are going to study back in Ireland?
Sorry, I didn't catch the start of the question.
Okay, so some students they were
Yeah,
given
no,
birth to in
I
Ireland,
got
right?
that bit.
So some of them want to go back now to study in Ireland, whereas
Yeah.
they've not lived in Ireland, but they have
Okay.
the permit that they are citizens of the country, right? So
Okay.
they now check with us what are the questions, what are the answers, what are the benefits that they can. Do they have to pay the same fees as the international students or as a citizen, as an EU citizen?
Yeah, so Irish citizens obviously don't need a visa to Ireland, so I'm not too fit. As far as I know, the fees is based on you living there. So if you've been living there, or your parents have been living there and contributing, I suppose it's only in that case that you're eligible for the EU level of fees. If you haven't, if you're not resident, if you haven't been resident there for the years prior to your study, then you don't qualify for EU fees, is my understanding. But I'm not exactly sure how that works or but the colleges maybe will be better positioned to answer that question, I think, for students.
Okay. Okay. So somebody is asking the representative in Ghana. I think okay. Yeah, you got that responded to. So do you have insurance companies in Nigeria you partner with um, to find medical insurance during this application process?
We don't have a list of approved ones. I know VFS have just recently kind of started or going to start offering a service that they're partnering with companies and stuff like that as a value added extra service. But the requirements of what the insurance has to be able to cover and provide is detailed on the website. So there isn't a list of this company or that company. It's more, it has to have so much cover. So how much, I suppose, it'll cover you for in-hospital or outpatient care and things like that. Again, you need to provide that for the visa, but you will also need to provide that when you're registering in Ireland after you arrive. So they will check that, I suppose, to make sure that it's So sometimes, yeah, I suppose they may get a kind of travel insurance, a temporary kind of one, and then have to get sort of full medical insurance while in Ireland. But the colleges, sometimes that's the colleges kind of can get group rates and stuff with insurers and include that in their fees.
Okay. Um, okay. I think that'll be all. Somebody's asking if they can apply with come with their dependents. Oh, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's a common question. I know some other countries allow it, but for us, it's only at PhD level students that we allow that. So yeah, it's very limited.
Yeah. Someone says we plan to submit applications in April. Is that okay? I assume so.
Well, we do say, I suppose, apply as early as possible. May is when we say to we start. We have already gotten some applications in for September. We won't not accept it, but our advice is if you apply in May, you're applying in plenty of time. If you apply in April, it does you still may not get issued, I suppose, till May or June at the earliest. I suppose we generally don't issue visas more than 3 months before you're due to travel. So if you've got a September start date, giving a few weeks before um, to settle in and stuff before your course starts, so the visa might be valid from August. So the earliest we could issue is May. So that's kind of why we go with then as a start date. The majority of applications come in
In
July. I
May.
suppose that's well, no, we're open for May, but most
Okay.
people tend to apply in July. But that's cutting it very fine, I suppose. If you apply in July and you start in September, you're only giving the minimum 8 weeks that we ask for. We don't have a cutoff time where we stop accepting applications, but I suppose the later you leave it, the less chance it'll be processed and decided in advance of and you could be late starting your course and stuff like that.
Okay. All right then. Okay. So there's several questions, but I'm just looking through to see the ones we can pick um, quickly and before we just wrap it up for today. Okay. Okay. So he says, Isaiah says, my daughter has been offered an admission for a 1 year living certificate. My wife and I are intending to travel with her with a short visit visa. Please advise.
So I suppose the general rule is that it doesn't allow, but obviously with minor children and things like that, I suppose it's slightly different. If if they would qualify for a tourist visit visa in their own right, we're not going to say no deliberately. We're not going to say no just because the general policy is that we don't. It doesn't entitle you to accompany and things accompany, but we appreciate. I suppose we're human. We know that. I suppose a child going to study who's in secondary school and going to study a leaving cert probably needs a bit more support and stuff like that. So we are open to accepting and deciding those kind of applications on their merit.
Okay. Okay. Isaiah, I hope that answers your questions. So yes, thank you everyone for staying back to listen to this session. I'm sure that you have learned one or two things, and especially how to apply for visas after you have received an admission letter to study in Ireland. Next up in the seminar session would be with the current students, those who have currently studied in Ireland. And I'm sure that you want to learn from some of the experiences they have had so far and they're still having while they're studying in Ireland. So please stay tuned. Thank you so much, David, for your time with us. And thank you for always being here for us at every time we'll call. So that would be it all from us. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosaline. Our booth, the embassy booth, will be open, and there'll be me and a couple of my colleagues on there. If you have any specific questions, we'll be
Yes.
there to answer them for the rest of the day.
Yes, please. And there are 15 more institutions in the booth. Please go back to the lobby and then click on any of the institutions. You can chat with them and they will be glad to answer any of your questions. Thank you again, and see you soon. Okay. Hi, Judith.